here. It is we of course export a lot of our meats and cutleries here to the local towns. I assume you are from Homestead? Questions?
Indeed, yes.
Yes, Homestead is one of our main buyers here. Uh, yeah, can I get you anything? A drink or something? Are you okay?
I'm alright. I've got a couple bottles of water in my pouch here. I'll be fine. Flask of water.
Is okay, good. Well, then, how about a tour?
I'd be glad. I would like to graciously accept that offer.
As he starts, ushers you off to one side, he starts taking this tour around the ranch with you. You come across some kind of just like a full outside sweep of this ranch. He says, "Here we have our local work stables. You see a good selection of about 10 or so stables that look to be large enough, and you see another half orc working with putting new horseshoes on one of the horses." He says,
Okay.
"Oh yes, uh, he says, Gert, would you be so kind?" He motions and kind of yells over to this half orc. The half orc looks up, notices you two, and puts his tools down, kind of lumbers over towards you two. As kind of half expected, this half orc has a very kind of upset look to him. He says, "Now, this man is a guest." The half orc just kind of stops in front of you guys and just kind of gives you a good hard look over, Scathe. Farrell says, "This is one of my stable hands. This is Gert. He is one of the muscles around here. Um, as far as you can tell, this half-orc is just your average depiction of a half-orc. You know, minimal clothing, like kind of like a kilt cloth kind of deal, and some boots. No adornments or anything. But one of his noticeable features, he's kind of got like a swampish green skin, and he looks like one of his right ear has been chewed off or clipped off, and he's like missing one of his right large bottom tusks. Like he's maybe been hit upside the right side of his face or something." Says, "Well, be nice to the man," Farrell says, kind of in a stern tone. The half-orc kind of snorts and holds his hand out. "Gert, nice to meet." Holds it out towards you.
I shake his hand. Nice to
Kind,
meet you,
he
Gert.
kind of just grabs your entire arm, not just your hand, and kind of haphazardly shakes it up and down and lets go.
Do
Says,
I take any damage?
"Oh no, but you do tell he. I'm not. You're not quite sure he knows what a handshake properly is."
Close enough.
Says, "Very well, you can go back to your work, Gert." As he kind of looks back at Farrell and kind of gives him a very discontented snort, as you can tell, and he kind of goes back over to the horse and continues his work. Says, he continues onwards, and you notice a couple of tool sheds off to the southwest. You also notice you can see the fence behind some of these buildings, and there are more flowers, once again, as you saw down the path, just lining the inside of the fence. You notice he passes between a pond that's kind of in the middle of the ranch. He goes around to kind of counterclockwise. You are now at the south end, back towards the gate, and you pass towards another large section. He says, "Here we have carts and our shipping supplies." You see another large kind of over enclosure that holds about 3 or 4 large carts. Look like they would be for transporting these shipments and such. There's a lot of barrels and such in here.
Okay.
He also took notice to let you know that please stop him at any point if you have questions or concerns or anything. After all, you are inspecting the place, he says.
Fair enough. I will be more than. I'll certainly let you know if I have a question.
Um, you pass by the gate and you're going back up around towards the east, about 3 o'clock kind of area. You pass by the animal pens. There's a large selection of pig pens and chicken. You see a chicken coop there. are a few chickens wandering here and there. You do see a small little assortment of cows. You pass back up by another large tree out in the middle of the ranch, and you see a barn off kind of a little bit behind everything, off towards the right. It says, and over there is the barn. I'd show you around right now, but unfortunately we are kind of using the barn as a sick bay for the time being. We've got a small little case of, I believe, is the avian flu caught some of our chickens, and we're kind of quarantining them in there, trying not to contaminate the other livestock. Uh, to this, you see the other half-orc come out. He no longer has the barrels on his shoulders, and he promptly shuts the barn door behind him. He says, "Oh yes, Derb, if you will," and the half-orc kind of crunches over towards you guys. He says, "And this is my other farmhand here. This is Derb." He motions to Skaith, and this half-orc is about the same as the other one, except this one does not have any noticeable features. He does not have any cuts or bruises or anything. And this half-orc will promptly hold out his hand towards you again. "Derb," he just simply says.
I reach out, Skaith.
"Oh, robot Skaith. Speak,
My fault,
please."
sorry. My fault.
"Oh, you're still cutting in and out."
I am?
"A little bit. Speak,
Odd.
speak a good sentence for me."
The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain.
There we go, you're back to normal.
Okay.
This half-orc takes your arm again and kind of forcefully shakes it up and down. "Well, yes, you can continue," Burrell says. The half-orc kind of discontently looks at the owner and goes back to whatever he was doing.
Here's where I raise a quick question.
"Yes."
I noticed he was when I first arrived here, I noticed he carried a barrel in there. If you're trying to keep everything locked up, why was he going in there with a barrel? I mean, obviously it's for storage, but I would presume that it would be totally off limits except for possibly checking in on the animals at certain points in time. But
Well,
I don't
it's
think you need a barrel for that.
Well, it's mainly locked for the animals' purposes. We still need to get into access to the barn for all the excess storage of goods and services, of course, he poses.
Fair enough. I apologize then.
On a normal day, we normally let a lot of our animals run here and there. We don't normally have them all penned up as such, he says. What you now do notice is a little bit strange. You would normally expect to see a pig, or at least, a few more chickens run here and about the ranch, but they all seem to be pretty penned up for the time being.
Yes.
He ushers you onwards, and you do notice the fencing again between all the buildings. He says, "Here we have the proper stables," to which there's a good selection of about 20 or so stables with about 15 or so horses in there.
Okay.
He says, "We only have, of course, the finest selection of feed imported from the neighboring towns, so we can have a good, healthy selection of livestock here. But unfortunately, we don't know what might have brought on this little case of our chicken croup," he says.
Well, I pull up as we keep walking. I ask, do you know, were you sent a message as to why they sent an investigator?
Uh, no, not at all. He was supposed to arrive somewhat this morning. All we know is we get one normally every month or so about this time.
Okay. Well, they sent out an investigator today, supposed to be today, because, unfortunately, the last shipment that arrived was partially rotted,
Oh,
and they marked that as exceptionally unusual for your fine establishment, and they wanted to send someone to make sure everything was all right.
yes, I do find that odd. We certainly pride ourselves and keep all of our cuts, well refrigerated and well kept. He says. At this point, you also notice the only place you have not been to or in yet is the farmhouse, and you do not see any sort of like meat locker or any storage for any cold storage, as far as you can tell.
May I see where you keep the meats? Maybe the refrigeration system is not kicking out fully.
Oh yeah, yeah. He kind of ponders for a second. Yeah, yes, yeah, certainly. He ushers you back over towards the tool sheds where you passed by earlier, and he opens up one of the tool sheds, which actually is uh, very barren. There's like hardly anything in here, and there's a small little trap door at the bottom. He says we actually keep it underground here to further keep the meats preserved. He says he opens up this little trap door and climbs down this small little ladder, to which you follow afterwards, leaving the trap door open. Uh, you empty down into basically just a little pit. Behind you is a little, like a little metal door. He pulls a large lever on it, pulls it to the side, and the door slides open, to which instantly a small little blast of cold air comes out, and you have now found an underground meat locker he has. In there's plenty of ice packed in solid blocks and all configurations lining the sides. He says we get our shipments of ice regularly within the you know, each week, and you also see large cutlets of cows that are ready to be cut up and processed hanging from the ceiling and such. And he says there's a side room right over here. He points to a door to the side. He says that's where we do our proper cuttings instead of just in this storage area right here.
Right, right.
But it's I would say up to standards. He says as he's kind of mentioned towards the fact that both of you can see your breath in this room.
Then that is very strange.
Yes, I'm trying to ponder that over myself. Maybe it's something with like carding error or something. I'm not sure. He ushers you back towards the ladder to leave.
Do I notice anything before we leave? Do I notice anything about the refrigeration area?
Roll perception.
3. No.
No, everything looks to be in order. Nothing seems to strike you out of the ordinary.
Hmm. All right then. We leave.
You exit out of the meat locker and out of the shed. He closes everything up promptly behind you guys. It says, as you look up, you now notice it's beginning to drizzle just a little bit. He says, "Oh, it looks like we might get some rain after all." He says, let's finish up our tour real quick and let's try to get out of this weather." He says as he rounds about and shows off the grounds a little bit more. You are taking notice that pretty much every building has a good scorch mark or two on it, as well as you can see the entire fence that surrounds the ranch. Except the only exit or entrance was the gate you went through, and the entire place is coated in odd flowers. You notice a lot of them are really out of season. Like some of them are wilted and some of them are in season. And you only notice now that you are getting that same unpleasant smell only when you pass around the fencing areas. To which, abruptly, a large clap of thunder happens and it starts to rain proper. He says, "Oh, geez, please, let's come inside, please." He ushers you back towards the farmhouse.
I pull up my head until we get into the hood until we get into the farmhouse.
It's a a nice little sizable two-story farmhouse. Seems like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath kind of house. A sizable little place. To which he ushers you inside through the door. You can tell he's got a light lit on the porch. He hangs the lantern up accordingly, like at the door frame. He ushers you inside and he kind of brushes himself off and takes off his like a work belt he has on him and hangs it up to the side. He says, "Looks like we're getting a little bit of a storm here. I didn't think we were supposed to get much weather," he says.
Yeah, that is strange.
He kind of looks outside as he peers out through the door he's kind of half holding open, and you see the half-orcs kind of somewhat hastily trudging up towards the house. Like it's raining, but they're not running. It's more like, "I'm getting wet. I'm getting inside." As he shuts the door, not expecting to hold it open for the half-orcs. He comes inside and says, "Well, it's getting fair enough late. Would you stay for dinner?" he says. Can't well have a guest and not at least have them some hospitality here.
Well, I will be more than happy to accept your offer if you will be kind enough to take these couple gold coins just to help compensate for the cost of the extra food.
Well, sure, but it's no problem at all, really. He tries to gesture you to keep the coins.
I insist. I have too much of a conscience for that.
Well, thank you very much, he says, and he promptly pockets a little gold coin. He says, I've practically got everything just about prepared. We were planning to eat shortly anyways. Here, you enter in the little foyer. There's like a flight of steps kind of to your left side. You see there's like a small room to the left. Appears to be somewhat of like a indoor bathroom or a powder room of some sort. There's a door at the end of the hallway and an opening room to the right that does not have a door. He ushers you to the room to the right, which is a small little dining area. It's got a table, like a dining room for like 6 kind of deal. And you can see at the end of the dining room there's like a small opening to what looks like a kitchen-like area. He says, "Please have a seat. I'll set things up shortly."
I take a seat.
Where do you
Do I
sit?
know? Just kind of off to the side, to one of the sides of the table.
Like against the wall?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can like look back towards the foyer and to the right to the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. To which the door swings open and the half-orcs trudge inside and try and stomp off this water and shake off a little bit. One of them continues upstairs and the other one continues towards the back of the house. As Pharrell kind of comes in and out, setting up plates and silverware and such.
Do I notice anything about the house?
Seems to be pretty simple. Some small little mementos look like hung up on the walls, like rustic items from farm days. There's not like weaponry or anything, but like a whip that looks like it has, sentimental value or something, and some etchings, looks like of an artist has done of the local land and such like that. Farmhouse.
Farmhouse.
Um, Pharrell's kind of humming his own little merry tune as he pulls in all the plates and everything. He instantly pulls out his huge basket of bread. He says, "Please help yourself while you wait." To which you see Gert, the scarred half-orc, trudge back down the steps and kind of turn like he's coming into the dining room and stops kind of at the hallway and notices that you're sitting at the table.
I offer him a piece of bread first.
He walks over the table. He takes like literally about half the loaf and just eagerly takes a big bite out of it. "Gert, need more butter!" and charges into the kitchen. Here, Pharrell. "It's in the fridge. You know where it's at." As you hear him rooting around. You hear them start to bicker a little bit. Sounds like, "Help me with the plates." Just go bring him a plate." The half-orc comes in and kind of almost tosses a plate at your area. Just kind of doesn't set it down carefully like anyone would. Kind of just plops it down in front of you.
Right.
Goes back into the kitchen. Busy. "Here," you hear Pharrell say, is kind of very sternly. "Just here." As the half-orc comes out with a large platter of greens, as they start, sounds like they're unloading the kitchen kind of deal. You hear some
Okay.
heavy footsteps upstairs, which you can only assume is the other half-orc upstairs doing something.
Okay.
Not too long before they essentially have the full table set up, there's a picture of some just regular water, and we have like a local brew, as well as you've got a plate of a good selection of bread and greens and fresh baked potatoes and such like that, as well as a large platter of what looks like barbecued cutlets. Uh, Pharrell takes his place practically opposite of you, and the orc takes his place kind of next to. Basically, Gert sits right next to you. He
Okay.
kind of eyes you over like he's staring you down. You gotta notice he's like very. You could probably tell out of anything you've seen, he looks generally a little bit more discontented than his normal stare.
Hmm.
You're sitting in a seat.
As
Pharrell
a,
kind of chuckles.
I ask if he would like me to move over. I'd be more than
Oh
happy
no,
to do
no,
so.
he's fine with it. He's a big boy, aren't you? Kind of looks back at Pharrell and doesn't really say much or do anything. Says, please, please, go ahead, enjoy, as he starts filling up his plate.
Is there anything off about the food? Or is it just normal food?
You've never seen this type of cutlet before. He says this is our one of our specialty. People may kind of look down a bit upon this, but this is actually a horse here. It is not. It is kind of rare to hear of horse meat, but it is not. It's more like a delicacy, if anything, you've heard of. You've never tried it yourself.
Well, I'm not um against trying new foods, so I'll give it a shot. I'll eat. It would be rude not to anyway. So
It has an off taste about it, like you can't quite relate it to anything else, but it's good. Just a different taste, like he's possibly marinated in something as well.
okay.
Um, he says, so, does everything pass inspection so far, Mr. Inspector? He says, between bites and such.
I say absolutely. Um, did want to ask you a couple of questions though, if that's all right.
Feel free, he says, as you hear more stomping about upstairs.
I've noticed that you have quite a around your farm, around your ranch. There's a lot of foliage.
Yes, yes, sorry, I did fail to mention that. It, we basically just get shipments of flowers every week, and I try to do a little bit of gardening myself, but basically it's to kind of cover up the smell. I believe you've noticed. I'm sure.
I didn't want to bring anything up, but I have noticed that.
My man, he says, kind of putting his knife down for a minute. If you're an inspector, you must bring up all the points. I'm a little bit disappointed here.
Well, I figured honestly that it was mostly just local wildlife consuming a few things and leaving
But
the
this
rest out.
pungent of a smell, he points out?
You make a valid point. I must say you did a very good job covering it up with the flowers. I
Yes.
only smelled a little bit.
Well, I did fail to mention this. I'm terribly sorry about this. The smell is actually rotten meat. Now, of course, as expected, we do, meat does rot as it does, and, that is not out of the question to what happens. Of course, we wouldn't dare to ship out rotten meat. We basically toss it over the fences here because that actually keeps our firewolves problem at bay, and we just put the flowers up to kind of hide that smell, so it's a little bit more pleasant for the three of us here.
I can understand that. Have the firewolves always been here?
Um, it seems they seem to kind of fluctuate in numbers throughout the breeding seasons in the spring, but as far as I've been here, they've generally been around this area, but they haven't really been much of a problem until about this year. To which Durb will trudge downstairs and take his seat next to Pharrell and begin to noisily start eating as well.
What have the firewolves been doing?
Basically, they've just been trying to prey on our local livestock. That's why we try to keep a lot of them penned up recently, as well as not let anything outside the fences, of course.
Right, understandable.
Another large
Hmm.
crack of thunder is heard as you can tell it is really raining outside.
Do
Hey,
I notice anything about... is anyone uneasy besides Gert next to me?
you do notice that the half-orcs are kind of just eating noisily to themselves. They seem to be just really staring at Pharrell. As far as you can tell, they generally are probably not too happy with him from the interactions you've seen thus far.
Probably not. I just think to myself that he's probably not the best uh, owner slash manager person to them.
Uh,
Or at least that's the way it strikes me as. I
y'all,
just think to myself,
y'all kind of do some. The two of you do some, idle chit chat here and there about Homestead and such, and uh, you think you hear a noise, a large, what sounds like a cow bellowing, but it is different than any normal cow you would expect to have heard. It sounds larger, or, if anything, a little bit distorted of some sort. To which Morel wipes his mouth and says, well, please excuse me for a minute, I have something to attend to, as you see him disappear towards the back of the house and you hear a door close.
hmm,
You are
I
left, you
think
are
I'm...
left there with the half-orcs. They've kind of stopped eating and just sit there and stare at each other.
I'm just gonna take a sip of my water and wait.
Derb looks over at you now, kind of. You're expecting him to say something or do something, but the tension just grows and you're getting very uncomfortable with these two brutes sitting here.
As a minor action, I feel uncomfortable.
Derb,
And I'm like,
Derb, he's almost half whispering. Derb, not like it here.
is there anything I can do to help? I whisperish back.
Boss man, boss man is bad. To which Gert looks over at you. Gert wish we had better pay grade, but Gert care less about pay grade.
Anything in particular that he's doing wrong that I need to know of?
Boss man, boss man feed fire wolves.
I think to myself that that's just a little weird. Does he have a pet firewolf, I ask, or something like that, or just feed them?
Gert motions back to bad meat not deter, bad meat feed fire wolves.
I see. I get it now. So his increased firewolf problem is because they can get easy food from him.
Derb looks back over, he says, bad juju in barn. Hides in barn.
I think I'll take a look at that shortly.
You hear something clatter on the floor around your feet.
I just kind of scoot it with my foot towards me and pick it up.
It is a key.
I hide it in my sleeve or something. Sleeve
To which
pocket.
the back door abruptly opens back up and Pharrell returns. And sorry about that, he says, as he sits back down to eat.
That's perfectly fine. And animal's probably just getting restless from the storm, right?
Yes. He kind of gives you a look over. Like that was too specific of an